Okay. I'm starting a bit earlier. Let's just see how this looked. Um, uh, Didn't want to look tired, but yeah. Let's see. There's someone here already. Let's just see if I. Anyway, I'm not going to pay attention to how I did my makeup or anything about how I look because I want to. I always try to make myself a little nice for you guys when I do these videos. How are you today? One person. I'll wait a little bit for other people to show up. This is also my first time doing a video where I finally mastered how to do it on my computer so I can see the comments and everything, so I don't have to wait or like do this on my phone. So I understand that the filming will be a bit different. Yeah, and I don't know, trying a different background out too. Yeah, so I've people ask me, why are you doing videos like this? It's because it's controversial, of course, and have already attracted the Bible thumpers and things like that. But yeah, I feel it's really important to talk about. I think that I've studied a lot of religious texts, and it's never quite sat right to me. I've never fully embraced it, and I've looked at it always objectively, and then also from I guess our star family's perspective, and also um, a brainwash and propaganda perspective as well. Just really interested on why, like, if this world has been compromised, which we know it has, and we're in a matrix, and then a lot of stories and history as we know it has been tampered with as well. Like, as we know, the history is written by the victors, and so it makes you wonder that how could we say that the Bible was not also tampered with as well? And also in this title, I talk about we have it all backwards. I feel like it is really like this Alice in Wonderland existence we're in. And also just being dyslexic myself and just being like, well, I'm not backwards, the world's backwards. You got to like stand on your head to make sense of everything, to do the opposite of what media is telling us. And for me, it's simple as that in that way. But oh man, there's so much to unpack, and I'm trying to think where to start because I don't want to like stir up controversy. It's easy to just kind of go back to doing what I did before. And I'm not saying I necessarily was telling people what they wanted to hear. I was just sharing what was coming to me, but I was presenting it in a more gentle package, not ruffling feathers. But as time goes on, and just through my own personal experiences, and particularly in lieu of all these wars that are breaking out, whether they are what they're telling us or not, which I have my suspicions. Same with like Israel, or sorry, Ukraine and Russia, um, and Israel and Palestine. I'm going to be careful because that's also there's a lot of censoring going around talking about these things. Uh, yeah, it's I'm distracted by how I look, so I'm just going to try to ignore that as best I can to kind of get into the flow of things and get used to doing a live in this way. Because it's easy to be critical of ourselves. And when I was doing videos before, I couldn't see myself, so it made it easier. Yes. So I don't know if I've shared much about my history with religion. I was raised in, I would say something of a cult. It's a combination of Jehovah Witness, Judaism, and Christianity, but not exactly um, those religions. Because I mean, I say this because my mom hates when I say this because she's not any of these religions. well, I guess you identify more as Christian, but, this is how, because I can see elements in these beliefs. So, for example, the reason why I say Christianity, well, because it has the story that we all know about, um, Jesus, but then she also has the Old Testament, which is, Judaism, and a church was always on, or the Sabbath was always Friday night and Saturday day. And then all these holy days, uh, Feast of Unleavened Bread, Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, and all this kind of stuff that I grew up, we kept. Um, God, what else? Oh, not we're not. I grew up not being able to eat any kind of pig or shellfish or anything like that, because she believed it's an unclean animal, or that religion believed it's an unclean animal. Um, and just yeah, just to keep the Sabbath was like you can't do anything on a Friday night or a Saturday, but just study religious scripture and things like that, and keep the Sabbath holy with however that what you were told to interpret it as. Um, and The Jehovah Witness aspect is because we didn't believe in a heaven. We believed in a resurrection, I guess. That if you were really good and kept the Sabbath, and oh yeah, we never celebrated any holidays either, or even birthdays for some reason, and I can't remember why. I keep trying to ask her what the reason is that we never celebrated even birthdays. I can see how holidays have. I don't like to use the word pagan because I think that pagan is not what we think it is. I see pagan as more connected to nature, which is a pure way, but then it most likely got compromised and tampered with, particularly along the lines where the Druids were connected to nature, and then it ended up being about sacrifice and so forth when the Khazarians got involved in it and just compromised things as always. What is this? I choose to keep shellfish, all other insects out of my diet. Well, yeah, I mean, that can be not only be considered unclean, I guess, but is also not something the body can properly digest and create a bunch of health problems. So that's also the justification of not eating uh, pork or shellfish, because you believe that it would create a bunch of health problems, or that's what you're told. So that's I don't know, something very strong within her to this day, and I find it's a bit like psychological too. So sorry, I'm also referring to my mom when I talk about this religion that we were a part of, that I grew up in, called the Worldwide Church of God. So I have a big problem though with this Jehovah Witness aspect of the religion. I have a big problem about a lot of things with this religion, that my mom has gone back to embracing, because I guess since losing dad, love of her life, she's felt that she needs to connect and find a way to, particularly when my mom has lost as many family members. Well, I have too. But it's going all over the place here. Bear with me. Because there's so much I want to unpack and say, and doing videos in a different way and trying to get used to it. But I lost 3 close family members before the age of 30. Those of you who've been following me for a while know that through my Project Camelot interviews and things like that. Might have shared stuff like this throughout my videos. And of course, it's very hard on my mom. And so, of course, she would go back to embrace her religious teachings. It's typical for a lot of people to do that, and I understand a lot of people need it, and it is their strength and things like that. And I'm not trying to take that away from them. My mother is just very adamant about keeping the religion and all these, I guess, Sabbath and everything like this, because she feels that that is the way that she will be able to see my father and brother and sister again, um, because of this zombie family reunion that this religion promises, which I find I don't know, a bit creepy and off-putting and stuff like that, that you have to work this hard, and if you make a mistake or if you don't keep the Sabbath or whatever, like, she's so adamant about every little thing, like, even a lie, even if it's a white lie, even if it's to help someone, she just won't do it, so she just the way I see people controlled by religious thinking really, um, bothers me. I mean, I grew up with my best friend also of over 20 years who, well, ex-best friend now because of this COVID stuff. But anyway, just being completely controlled by religion and limited, and other people I know who just are terrified to just be intimate with someone, before marriage, otherwise, or sorry, yeah, before marriage because, of what they'll be a dirty sinner and maybe go to hell or something like that, and, that's, uh that's disturbing to me. Um, all this mental control and mind prison, I call it, and, I feel that we're at a point of revealing and revelations, which is why I call this, video the apocalypse of Adam. For those of you who know my videos, I also talk a lot about how, apocalypse and revelation means come to light of what's been hidden. So, that's also interesting with these texts. That is the, called the apocalypse of Adam, which I actually share the comment in, the link in, the video, in this video, I guess in the not comment section, but in the about section, I guess. Hello, Blue Flyer and, Robert Anthony. Nice to see you again. And We Free and 420 Era, if I'm saying it right. And Michael Leonard, who gave me a comment earlier on today. Because I attracted some Bible thumpers by having this title. And so I don't, yeah, I always try to, I try to talk reason, I guess, to them and try to get them to understand where I'm coming from and why I'm sharing this, but it's always taken as like I need to find Jesus and things like that, which I'm also questioning that story too. I think it's healthy that we do because, again, they've tampered with the Khazarians, the Cabal, whatever you want to call them, have tampered with everything throughout history. Why the heck don't you think that they wouldn't tamper with the Bible as well, and particularly these stories that they knew that people would hold on to this day? Now, I also have arguments from people who are like, well, if it's not effective, if its story's not true of Jesus, then why, um, when there are demons or entities or whatever that I was saying, the power of Jesus, be gone, and then it works. So again, I'm not discounting it, and there is a power behind it. I do feel that the cabal is now wanting to wean us off of religion as well, because they want to be the basically the god of this world. They want us to worship government. They want us to, constantly, but we've been raised, and conditioned for thousands of years to have this savior mentality. And that savior mentality I have a big problem with as well, because I can see how much it disempowers us. So in one hand, usually in, when it comes to work the demons, they're afraid of that first, and then they usually come back stronger or even mockingly about it. So it depends on the intent behind it, I feel. I think that, if you're giving your power away as opposed to knowing that, you are this power, you are a part of it. So, and just particularly what's going on right now in this, oh gosh, I'm jumping around a lot. I'm sorry, bear with me, because there's so many things I wanna say and it all wants to come out at once, and I'm trying to find the right way to say it, because 'cause I'm not working with a script. I do have some point form stuff though, which will help. Um, but yes, so anyway, this is the way I grew up. This is a strange cult religion that I remember also with this religion, when we were young, we would go for trips and vacations, and it would always be to other churches of this belief, and we would only hang out with people within our church. And of course, like, that's a kind of culty aspect, is that, you know, you can't hang out with other people, only the ones that believe what you believe. Otherwise, I don't know, they're threatened by it or something. I remember that. And also, when we did leave the church, I remember everybody who was our friend was no longer our friends anymore. So it's always like, I only like you and accept you if you believe what I believe and tell me what I want to hear, how I want to hear it. And I had a big problem with that. I was suspicious of that. And this was, you know, these are what were my experiences as a young kid. And also, I just remember the rewards you get for being able to recite Bible lines and stories and all this education in it. I even memorized some of the chapters, if I remember correctly. I think I still remember them to this day: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, something like this. I just have a really good memory as well. But just certain things just stand out in my memory and just kind of don't sit right, and they just stay there. And as I go throughout life, I kind of put these pieces together. And there's the reason why I'm doing this video is actually because of something I watched in the Pharmacratic Inquisition documentary, which I talked about before, about how religions and holidays come from mushrooms, particularly the Amamiti muscaria mushroom. And also why the cabal is so obsessed with pushing as much drugs in our system as possible. And also why they're so obsessed with the transgender movement as well. That all kind of correlates into this documentary. But this one part that stood out to me a lot was the most is this, when they talked about from the Nag Hammadi text. And it was a story of Genesis, but from a totally unlike anything I've heard before of a Gnostic text. And it just stuck with me, and I couldn't let it go. So I was thinking maybe I could play it for you guys. I'm still trying to see if I can share. I understand you can share your screen, because I would love to share the text as well. I was thinking I can maybe also try sharing on my phone, but I'm not sure it will be. If you can see that at all. Yeah, no, there's too much light and stuff like that. But you can hear it, I guess, and you can watch it. I included the link here as well. I can also try to do it on my quiet ad. If I were to do it like this, would you be able to see it that way? Probably better with all my light reflections. I just want to show that one scene to kind of get at where I'm going to talk about today. I got so many tabs. Okay. If you guys, and like I said, the links are in this comment section. No, not comment section. In the about section, you will be able to see where I'm getting at and follow along with me if you would like. Let's see. So it's at about 1:13.
Eve was created from the rib of Adam. Actually, at this point, Adam is a hermaphrodite. Male and female, he created them and blessed them, and he called their name.
That's not the section I want to show. No, I think it's here. I did have it, and then it went away.
For other types of mushrooms as well.
Yeah.
On the left is an image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. She is the Mexican equivalent of the Catholic Virgin. Notice that she, too, is clothed with the sun. The crescent moon is below her. Below that is a Leviathan-like serpent with the 7 heads. The stars that the Leviathan was sweeping out of the sky in the alchemical image are now hidden in the clothing of the goddess.
Oh God.
And we have shown where some of the symbolism comes from in the heavens, but let's take a deeper look into this icon, Our Lady of Guadalupe. The story of the woman and the dragon is found in the book of Revelation, Revelation 12, where it reads, "A great and wondrous sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with a moon under her feet and a crown of stars on her head. She was pregnant and she cried out in pain."
This is part of it, but this is not the main one. I wanted to show particularly from the Nag Hammadi. And I thought I had it, but maybe, there we go.
Find a very interesting story on the origin of the world. Sophia sent her daughter Zoe, being called Eve, as an instructor in order that she might make Adam. When Eve saw her male counterpart cast down, she had pity upon him and said, "Adam, become alive, arise upon the earth." And then what happened? Well, immediately her word became accomplished fact, for Adam, having arisen, suddenly opened his eyes. When he saw her, he said, "You shall be called the mother of the living, for it is you who have given me life." And then the authorities were informed that their modeled form was alive and had arisen, and they were greatly troubled. They sent 7 archangels to see what had happened. They came to Adam. When they saw Eve talking to him, they said to one another, "What sort of thing is this luminous woman? For she resembles that likeness which appeared to us in the light." So what did they do to her? "Now come, let us lay hold of her and cast our seed into her, so that when she becomes soiled, she may not be able to ascend into her light. Rather, those that she bears will be under our charge. But let us not tell Adam, for he is not one of us. Rather, let us bring a deep sleep over him and instruct him in his sleep, to the effect that she came from his rib, in order that his wife may obey, and that he may be Lord over her." So the gods, or these 7 authorities, these landlords, are forcing a patriarchal setting. I call them landlords, but they are also the 7 of them. In the older texts, these 7 authorities tell Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of knowledge. In the newer version, the Bible, these 7 landlords simply become the Lord in all capital letters, but they're by no means the great architect of the universe. They represent a governing body, and in this story, they represent the governing body of the Garden of Eden.
I'm not going to show you all of it, just a little bit. Just the parts I want you to see here.
So this fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, did it contain poison? Is that what God was warning them about?
Okay. So it's just very different from what we're used to hearing, which I find very fascinating about the Nag Hammadi. And so this also links to what they're talking about in this documentary, the Dead Sea Scrolls. That was, and this text was all found, if I remember correctly, so let me see, I wrote it all down, in Egypt, in a cemetery in 1945, and it was actually banned from the Bible. So these priests all found it, and they basically decided that this was not going to be mentioned, what was actually in these texts. And things like was also found in there, this text called the Apocalypse of Adam. Again, Apocalypse and Revelations means come to light of what's been hidden. So the story is very different, of the opposite of what we are told. So again, that's why it tells me, look how they're just constantly wanting us to, they're just reversing the stories on us constantly. There is more that I'm sure I had the right one, but I don't know if my cat's went untouched, stepped on my computer before getting ready for the live, which is very likely to have happened. But do you have any comments on that so far while I prepare more information? 7 chakras, 7 landlords. Well, in this case, they were talking about, how there are clearly more than one god. Gods, like in Genesis, "Let us make man in our own image," is plural. And so these ones, I think, in this case, is a form of, controlling. So let's let me go to here now, and I'll just bring up just trying to think if there was other things I wanted to mention as well before I go into the the apocalypse of Adam, about my religious background and also why I'm bringing it up at this time. Um, I want us to understand how brainwash works. I want us to understand how traps work. I want us to um, want to look at our blind spots honestly, and just hmm, I feel like we have to question everything because we're constantly being played for and used as casualties in wars, particularly what's going on right now, that they're making it, of course, religious war, and so much bloodshed has happened via justification of war and God and what God wants. I really want to focus more on the Old Testament today, um, because I feel that this is ties into um, very much the New Testament and the same sort of control happening over and over again. And I'm shy to talk about it because I know that it like upsets so many people, and I'm trying to find a gentle way to talk about it at the same time, without. I know most of you guys know where I stand on these things and why I'm suspicious of these things, particularly my qualms with my mom's religion is just, how much she is so controlled and how nervous she is to just like make one mistake and then she won't be able to see her loved ones anymore, and just how like insecure this God is that it has to be the only God and has to be, worshiped. So, but yet, like the Bible is clearly written from several different gods, then they somehow seem to have just merged God as one being, but really it's several, which is why God seems so schizophrenic in the Bible, and just wanting blood sacrifices all the time, which is clearly what we know about the cabal and what they're all about today. So I feel like looking at all this information doesn't mean I fully agree with it. I think that though it's interesting to listen and really think about. And also because not very many people are talking about this. And I think that more people need to. And so I tend to start if I start talking about, maybe others will as well, because I don't know, I have this ability whenever I speak, people tend to listen, and I'm able to take complicated things and help them make more sense to people. And that's always been my gift, I guess. Um, but it's, I don't know, it's still kind of funny to me. But, so Gnosticism, agnostic or Gnosticism. Um, Basically, what does a Gnostic person mean? It means a belief that human beings contain a piece of God, the highest good of a divine spark within themselves, which has fallen from the immaterial world into the bodies of human. So, again, with dealing with people that are really religious, they're always like, no, anything that talks about something like this is immediately considered evil or away from Jesus. And then they pray for me to find no Jesus and all this kind of stuff. But I was like, okay, prayer is good, but pray for me to find um, the truth and not your truth, which they don't seem to like that. But I want to remind people that, I mean, you're not born with these beliefs. They you take them on and you identify and you think, you think this is who you are after a while, and this is just common the way of how brainwashing works, which is why I've always just wanted to question these things. Um, just be honest with ourselves. Just a sec, there's a comment here. Yeah, thank you. You're impressed that I know about it. This is what I wanna share about because, like I said, people don't talk about it, and anytime you talk about it, there's just there's so much, distortion and just tampering of these messages, and that's why like, feel like it's all backwards, like, we are parts of God, we're pieces of God, but not the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible is something that, um the the Gnostic people were trying to even, um, not just warn us about, but even just trying to get their information out there, and it's been constantly tampered with, and I tend to, and censored, let's say, more so than anything, because the Bible, when they want something to be public and they know a lot of people, they need to have it be a certain way so that you can control the masses, particularly to justify wars and bloodshed and participate in rituals without knowing it. Um, Particularly when we're doing these rituals every day in hopes that we're going to get some kind of a reward, as opposed to just because we are just naturally good. I feel that there's been, a lot of work done to brainwash and program us to be, tap into things that are more just considered not good, because humans are innately good, and there's been a lot of work to make them, not. It's a lot of work to try to, and so the Bible's to me seems to be, it's all about just every time people try to wake up and question what's, uh, like, even question their God, they're like, "Well, how dare you," kind of a thing. You're not, really following, you're not true believers, so therefore I need to wipe you all out or sacrifice or say you're evil or whatever. So there's a ton of, proof and information about this in Gnostic texts. Um, so but let's start with, wondering if I've made my point or if I should go a little bit more into it before I go into the Apocalypse of Adam. Michael Parker, have you heard of the Apocalypse of Adam? Are you familiar with that from the Nag Hammadi library? Uh, you're quiet right now. So anyway, let me see here. Let's talk about the Tower of Babel, where people were trying to connect, basically, to me, that story is about, they know they're in a matrix, they know they're trapped, the people, and they're trying to figure out how to get out of it, and they're all working together to do that. But the way the text describe it is, oh, they're trying to get to God, they're building a tower to get to God, heaven in the sky. But God doesn't like this for some reason. God doesn't like that we're all working together, that we're wanting to explore things. So what does he do? He decides to disconnect us all, make us speak different languages, creates, different countries and borders and, races and all this kind of thing for division and separation. And it looks like the Bible's constantly trying to, the God of the Bible is trying to divide and separate us. So um there's this great, podcaster, on YouTube called, what's Inspiration, I believe, and, I like also how he puts it. He says, that we need to consider that the God of the Bible is the God of the matrix, who created this matrix, this trap for us, and is not the true God, because, well, first of all, I really feel that the true God would not be so insecure and, demand all these rituals and routines, to be, loved and embraced. Like, this God would understand that these are, like, lower aspects of, just insecurity. Is not a high level conscious understanding, right? When you are more conscious, you're less insecure. You don't care, about these things. You have faith in your creation that they will figure it out when the time comes. They know that they'll come back home to them, right? They know that we're kind of venturing out and trapped in this experience, and particularly when I connect with star people, they're very much about, making us understand how much we are trapped in this matrix that we're in. So it correlates also with the Nag Hammadi and these teachings in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Um, you must not only know and realize the facts, but the relationship between them. Exactly. It's so true. So when understanding how conditioning works and brainwash and things like that, that's why I talk about knowing that we are not our thoughts. So looking at how we deceive ourselves, and because we have to deceive ourselves first before others can deceive us. Um, and this sort of relationship we have to have with ourself throughout life, because we are the only ones that have to live with ourselves 24/7, right? We're sentenced to ourselves 24/7, and so we better make inside of ourselves a kind home. Um, and so that's understanding that, first of all, we're not our thoughts, and we're not necessarily our emotions, but they're like musical. They're keys on a keyboard that we can play, and it's our relationship to our thoughts. It's our relationship to our emotions that really make the big difference in how what we're going to do with the things that happen to us and the thoughts that come to us, because a lot of times we identify with a thought, we think that's what we are, and then we become it, just like a religious belief. This kind of pattern is something that we need to be aware of how it works. So that's also correlates with what you're saying, Michael, with relationship between them, and also understanding just we are here to overcome thousands of years of conditioning, and religious conditioning is a big part of whether you don't consider yourself religious or not. We still have religious conditioning in us that's constantly playing a part in us that we need to look at all the time, and also realize our relationship with it. Like, are we letting this ideology stress us out? So thank you, Michael. You're getting me out of my shell. I'm always a bit shy every time I go live for some reason, and it takes me a while to say what I want to say and get in my flow, and I don't know why. But this time, sometimes it takes an hour. This time it only took a half an hour, so that's not too bad, or 40 minutes. It's getting better, I guess. Um, Remember, you were looking at symbols through myths. The symbol of the wise are idols of the ignorant, and archetypes too. Like the Greek gods are archetypes that live on. Like I mentioned this before. So the god of love, god of war, god of wisdom. These are all archetypes that live inside each person. Um, but they're fighting for our attention. Certain thoughts fight for our attention. Conditioning and programming and ideologies fight for our attention and focus as the one that we want to, make better than the other, or favorite more than the other, and then identify with. I'm an intellectual. I'm a warrior. I'm this and that, right? And that's also not very. What ends up happening is they just fight within us, and when we choose one over the other, we end up getting like a war because they're like, you're not paying attention to me now. So it just plays out and uses humans basically as a casualty throughout time. So we have to be aware of that too. It's all about, this is how the trap works. So we're understanding the trap. We're in the time of revelations right now, and revealing an apocalypse right now where everything's coming out. And awakening, there's so many layers to awakening as well. Even in the freedom movement, it's frustrating because there are people who can see what's going on with the injections and COVID, and then maybe they don't. They believe that the news is that now suddenly saying the truth for Ukraine and Russia, um, or the trans movement, or whatever kind of thing they're pushing. It's just interesting, and then constant division too because of religion, because there's a lot of people in the freedom movement who feel like this is a religious war. So I talked about this before. I guess I'll bring it up again. This particular freedom group I was involved with was very much Christian, and they ran it in a very Christian way. And so even if you wanted to help lead a chapter in your area, because it's also people who are freedom fighters, but then suddenly you also have to be Christian in order to run one of these freedom movements with this organization. And not only do you have to be Christian, you have to be the kind of Christian that this lady deemed was, her standard. of how you should be. Um, and then she suddenly started to talk to God, and so she started to just cut through this group of freedom fighters and say, well, this is my group, and everybody has to be Christian now to be in this group. Otherwise, like anything spiritual, she interviewed someone who is spiritual and saying that through yoga and doing postures or channeling demons. And she was like, yeah, so spirituality is all evil. So I don't want anyone who's a freedom fighter and being spiritual at the same time. So this division, I have a big problem with, where we are fighting, metaphorically, a Goliath. And we stop what we're doing and we decide to just fight amongst each other just because we have different ideologies, and one is so sure that they're right that they're only going to have progress and by dividing us and making us only I like you again if you believe what I believe. So I've encountered this so much in life, and it's just very frustrating because I feel like, how do you wake up when we're constantly dividing at the same time because of these ideologies? And um, I know there are people watching these videos of mine hoping that I'm going to come to the light and start saying, oh, Jesus is the truth and the way and everything, and I'm saved or whatever. That's never going to happen. Like, I've gone through many extremes, and I've really tried to understand um, everything about even my memories. I know we shouldn't even memories aren't fully reliable or accurate either, and we can make our memories be something to have us, and a lot of times they do make us suffer over and over again, and it's hard to get out of a depression when you have something happen to you in your past that you end up reliving over and over to the point that it's like you can't escape it and you can't look at it objectively. You're owned by this memory, and it repeatedly abuses you. And that's something we've really got to watch about too, because we tell ourselves certain things happened a certain way and we have a relationship to that. Whereas when you're objective about it, so for example, for me, I could say, when I tell people about losing 3 close family members before the age of 30, they're all just like, "Oh my gosh, how do you function?" and everything like that. And well, because I was, we say I was very connected spiritually and understood that things were not as they seemed and that we were in a matrix, a hologram, um, since I was young and connected to beings of other realms or whatever you want to call them, star people, whatever. It's just, these are just, terminologies to try to explain complicated things to people. But things outside the hologram, you can say. And I worked in the film industry when these losses happened. I'd have my guides say to me, I call them guides too sometimes, I call them different names. Um, they're just like, well, so if a character dies in a movie or a TV show, are they dead in real life? And I was like, no. They're like, exactly. So what's happening? What are they doing? I'm like, well, they're hanging out backstage with the cast and they are taking on different roles. And that's exactly the case of what happens when we die. So for me, I never really mourned and I never really felt this kind of sadness about these things. Of course, I miss them. But I still feel connected to them in a way. What the hardest part about losing these loved ones was how it affected my mother and my family, who didn't have this, I guess, deep spiritual connection or understanding about the other side as I did. And saw that they needed, like my mom in particular, has to do all this work religiously in order to see them again. Um, that's what's hard, and particularly because I'm an empath too. So I feel other people's pain and joy as if it were my own. So that's the other thing about, again, having relationship to your thoughts and your emotions and knowing that they are not necessarily yours. Because we're taking on, particularly if you're a sensitive empath like me, which I'm sure a lot of you are that are watching this, are also um, taking on other people's stuff. So your emotions and your thoughts, are you sure those are yours, or are they coming from someone else's that you're picking up around you? And are you picking that up because you can transmute it? Yes, you can. You can do it for them where, well, they don't yet have the spiritual capacity to. Let's just put it that way. Um, but yeah, so going back to memories, it's been proven that a lot of memories are very much distorted, like funhouse mirrors. They're not there. There's a whole bunch of things that are just not reliable in it, and then some are just flat, made out, invented, or we've heard a story over and over again, to the point that we take it into our biology. Our spirit starts reacting to it. So, for example, people who are afraid of dogs, but they've never had an encounter with a dog attack, but their family member has, their parent has, and they've shared that story and they've heard it over and over. And it's almost like it's happened to them now, that they visualized it so clearly that now they have that fear. Some people can say, oh, it's a past life or something like that. But I mean, our generationally too, I feel that I am another version of my mom. I am the version, and then like that's why every new version, every child is like one that has to take into account all the patterns and traps that the previous generations have fallen into, and try to understand and overcome them, and in a way break these spells that were put on us, like hereditary illnesses and stuff like that. Oh, this cancer runs in the family, so your grandmother died of this, you're probably going to get this and die of this too. And I know a lot of people, my friends, that are afraid of this because their mother died of this cancer, so I'm going to too. And these are spells that we have to break. These are realizations of, what is this pattern inside of us, that, I don't have to be this case again. It doesn't have to be that way. So we're stepping into our power and realizing, no, I don't have to be a slave to this hereditary pattern. Let me see here. I have some more comments. Oh, thank you. Oh, happy homesteader. That's very sweet. I'm so shy every time. I don't know why. I just want to share, but it just comes out as like just blah, all over the place. I feel like I don't know. I always feel like I'm not making sense, but I guess I am. So that's again like our relationship to ourselves, and but I just think, well, it's okay. It's like I I never wanted to be a public figure, but then at the same time, I saw what was going on in the world, and I couldn't be silent about the things that were coming to me and the things that I saw, so I just had to share. And so, like, the message was always stronger than the fear and the shyness and all this kinda stuff, so, um thanks for talking real talk. Aw, thank you. You're welcome, guys. Thank you for helping me get out of my shell to share this kinda stuff, because I need all this nudging, which is why I do a live, and I kind of, like, struggle awkwardly in the beginning to get out what I wanna say, 'cause I know what I wanna say, but it's just finding the best way to get it out. Um, so let's see. They were talking about several different things. What was my track here? So back to, the agnostic text and the Nag Hammadi and the apocalypse of Adam. And wait, yes, we are undoing our answers to our prayers. That is why we have a relationship to reveal self to self. And it's about witnessing our own becoming. Incarnation after incarnation is that, like a soul refining itself through time, playing different roles, being separated from God, the true God, not the God of this world, not the God of the Bible, not the God of the Matrix, not the God that trapped us in flesh and worked really hard to disconnect us and make us constantly forget who we are. Because with all this stuff going on in the world, we have to ask ourselves, and I don't know why people aren't asking, who are we and what are we capable of, that they're so afraid of us. Like, all this stuff that's going on is clearly fear that we're waking up and constantly using the same tactics and tools they used before, which are in The Art of War. If you've read that book, it's like constantly being played out on our psyche over and over again to try to maintain control over us. When you're losing control, these are the things that you do. These are the things to try to maintain your control, but none of that's working anymore, because we're at this exciting state of liberation, where we're at this state where we realize we are the answer to our prayers. Um, and that's all I've wanted people to realize, like, ever since I can remember when I was young, I fell in love with humanity, and I fell in love with their potential, and, I wanted so badly for them to see what I see in them, um, who they were outside of all this conditioning, and I can see conditioning surrounded around people, um, and I'm better at it now that I'm older because I had my own conditioning I needed to see as well, and I just always wanted to be honest with myself to see, "Okay, Jess, are you holding on to something that is, an emotional," because our conditioning is a very emotionally we're attached to, um, as something that is mostly nostalgic, where we have really fond memories around. A lot of people, you know, love their belief because they have good memories of, when it was a simpler time and they felt connected and safe and things like that. But that's not necessarily, um, the best thing for you because you're comfortably numb in a prison. But then when you start to wake up, it's so unpleasant when you start to see what's really, really going on. And I think that's why when people wake up, they're willing to see some things, but not other things, or they're able to fit it in their package of beliefs. And if it doesn't fit in that, then no, that must be evil and wrong. And I also have a big problem with that too, constantly discarding things that we don't understand as evil and wrong, rather than understanding what evil is, which is, again, just look at the word evil, or live spelled backwards is evil, and lived spelled backwards is devil. So basically anything anti-life. Um, and that's I was thinking about that also with love as well, because love and evil is love spelled backwards. So I was thinking about how, um, we're constantly taught, oh, we just need to love and accept everyone, even maps, um, and things like this, which is not the answer, because you're basically allowing, if we just loved everybody and accepted everyone, then we'd be allowing a lot of, um, awful things, to just just accept and fine. So, even abuse and things like that. Oh, just love them, and it will it will heal somehow. No, it makes it worse, right? So love and light too is something that we need to question as well. And I'm not necessarily toting that that is the answer. And I hear that all the time. Oh, love is the answer. Love is the answer. No, understanding is the answer. Seeing our conditioning and brainwash and how we're being played, and forced to accept things that will, um, try to disconnect and destroy our um, our natural beautiful connections to, who we actually are. And that's, again, they've done this for thousands of years, so we've been asleep for thousands of years, so I have a lot of empathy for people who are sleeping, who don't get it, even people who are constantly wanting for me to be religious, and see what they're seeing, 'cause, I understand underneath all of that, we again, what is your relationship with those texts? Is it because you're looking at it because you're afraid what happens to you if you don't? You're afraid of, going to hell, because there's a lot of people who are thinking that this is our only life and this is only one chance to get it right, and it's not possible to get it right in just one chance, and that's completely unreasonable, unrealistic standards set for ourselves. And what people don't realize is that fear of hell is so strong within people that they're not a good person, that they're not good enough because of these impossible standards that are set for us, that, when they die, they actually are afraid to cross over. And so they stay in the 4th dimension in this, spirit realm as a ghost. And because that's seems better to them than going and facing this imaginary god's wrath. When again, if this god is so divine and pure, it would understand and see all these, psychological traps that are going on, and would be above all that. So, let's see. We are unbrainwashing ourselves, we're unconditioning ourselves, or mindfuck, the great unfuck begins. This is why we have relationships to reveal itself to the self. Spirituality is the study of the soul. You've been there, done that. Jesus is the church's, interpretation of Yeshua, but that a horse of a different color. Yeah. Thank you, Michael Parker. I really like what you're sharing here. A big hug from the Canary Islands, Johnny Guitar. Wow. I lived in the Canary Islands for a little bit. Tenerife, in the east of the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, I know. I hope you're well. I love to see that after so many years you're still in yeah. Well, I can't stay away. I have things to share, and it just bubbles up within me. So, and I'm just constantly getting my feet wet again. I'm just practicing again, doing these videos and these lives. And I promised I'd make better quality videos and learn how to do things. Even people wanted me to start monetizing my channel. I'm looking in on that, but that means someone has to watch my videos and approve of it, and I'm not sure. I also don't want to be flagged as well, so I don't want to put myself as a target. But when you put yourself out there, you are unfortunately a target. That's just how it goes, and there's always going to be people that like you and like what you say, and a bunch, and probably half that don't. And that's just how it is. So the more people that share, I feel that okay, maybe I can't get through to them, but someone else can. So yeah, you're welcome. It's just wild. I still just all these like friends from all over the world and people that are just like silently watching me, and people that may never comment, that I might never know because they're shy too, but they're there. This is what I call my soul family. And just wanting to peel all these layers, because we can't get to our graduation until we wake up and realize who we really are and what's really going on and how we've been deceived throughout history. And that means having to look at everything, even the things we don't want to look at, even the things we're so sure is true. So that's why, like, I didn't want to look at love. I didn't want to see that there could be anything wrong with love because it was just such a perfect, beautiful answer. But we have to look at it. We have to look at it because that could be another thing that could be trapping us. Just like being in an abusive relationship and I just need to be more loving with them. No, the abuser is like, hey, wow, whatever, I can do anything to them and they're always going to love and forgive me and come back for more because they're going to, I'm going to give them that little bit of love and affection, but then I'm going to see that I'm losing control of them, or I'm in an insecure moment. So I'm now going to take all my abuse out on this person again. And they're never going to go anywhere because I'm going to keep using this Stockholm syndrome approach on them because it works. And this person who's abusing isn't necessarily bad. They've been conditioned to be that way. And so many people who haven't had healthy relationships growing up, or healthy love, let's say there's unhealthy love and healthy love, that they tend to only be drawn to partners that are toxic because that's what they know of is normal for them, and affection and all that kind of stuff. So these are, again, why I keep getting at this and having us look at these things, because I want to prepare people for revealings, and I have my part to play in that, particularly because of this perspective I have from always the other side. And I think I guess having many incarnations as being a spirit guide before being in a physical form, and still not being used to being in a physical form, is just so bizarre. But great revelations as we choose our experiences, every experience, whether judge as good or bad by a conscious mind or not. So that's, to a degree, that is like the Truman Show, or destiny versus free will. We choose our experiences until we realize like that we can choose completely different experiences. Do you know what I mean? So that's also like pertaining to lucid dreaming and lucid living. So we choose to have nightmares to be able to train to know how to react to them in a healthy way. Unhealthy way is to run or fight, and worst of all, wake up. Because in all of those, like when you are running, you can never get away. You're always in this sort of a labyrinth loop maze that you just nowhere. They always tend to catch you. No matter where you go, they're there. And no matter how you fight, they're always stronger than you. They're always tougher. They don't die. Nothing works. And you're always weaker. This is unconscious fighting. This is an unhealthy way, like, because there is like a fight for our freedom, which is a healthy kind of a fight, um, but not it's not doesn't necessarily need to be physical and with bloodshed. But anyway, this is another thing. But and then the worst thing we can do is wake up. And the reason I say that it is a worst thing is because it's like, okay, you didn't deal with this. You gave all your power in the nightmare to this entity, and now you've chosen to wake up because you're exhausted and you've given into the fear. So now it follows you into waking life. So now we have this collective living nightmare that we're in. But when you're lucid and you realize, you know what, you're not real, monster or whatever. It has you have no power over me. It disappears. It's just like, oh, that's right, gone. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm in this depressing place. I want to be in a tropical area. I want to fly, and you can do all these things suddenly. And it's that realization that in waking life as well, that we don't have to be a slave to the story and to this collective nightmare. The trick, though, is it's not that simple. We have to do it collectively. So we can be lucid in life. We need to be lucid in life because life is another dream. Um, but we're talking about having a choice. But in waking life, which is also a dream, all the choices that have been made for us, even religion, is prepackaged choice. Someone created it for us. That's why I use the metaphor of going to the grocery store. Everything that's there for us as an option is pre-chosen by someone else. And these someone else's are usually corporations who don't have our best intention and want to keep us sick and dependent on them and littered with chemicals. And they're constantly trying to change the names and hide it so people aren't aware. I recently saw a video that Bill Gates bought up, and with Katy Perry for some reason, bought up in 2019 Bragg's apple cider vinegar. And they use appeal in it. Appeal is this toxic chemical that can't be washed off any fruit or vegetables, and these labels are showing up all over our produce. But this information about appeal has only come out recently, whereas they've been using this appeal on this apple cider vinegar since 2019, knowing full well that this is a thing that a lot of people who are awakening realize they don't trust, and that there's a lot of benefits and healing properties from apple cider vinegar. So they have compromised it, they've tampered with it, and we're going to the store thinking that we still have good options, but these choices are pre-selected for us. So do we really have a choice? When the more you wake up, the more you realize you have to be aware of the pre-selected choices for you. So that's why I say, like, we have a loose script for life. Yes, we do. There are certain things that are going to happen to us, that are going to shape and mold us into the person we came here to be, to do what we came here to do. But when you realize that this is what's going on, when you realize you're in this matrix and you have this script, it changes. Now you co-write the script. Now you're no longer a slave to it, and you have a different relationship to it. So these things that happen to us don't have to break us or make us go into depression or give up or see we're screwed or whatever kind of thing that I see constantly happening to people throughout time. We can use it as to make us, stronger and more resilient, and to understand this the great mystery that we're all working on of the matrix, and this labyrinth. That's why I really like the movie The Labyrinth, because this line that she keeps forgetting, which is the most important line, is, you have no power over me. These experiences have no power over me. These thoughts, these emotions, they have no power over me, just what we give to it. These gods, this evil has no power over me. Like, that's the key thing in being able to lucid dream, is realizing that this has no power over me. This isn't real. I can change it. This is what we're here to do in waking life, collectively, to work together. I need a translator and a secretary. Do you mean for different languages, Michael? Maybe eventually one day I will get there. I let it happen naturally as I put myself out more and more there, out in the public again. Um, yeah, so yeah, there's some people that's been following me for, like, over 10 years, and, so I find it also I've been struggling to understand my experiences and why certain things have happened, particularly the EOF days and my ex Diego, um, and, coming across the Nag Hammadi text and agnostic information kind of makes a bit more sense because that relationship, I describe it like like a drug rehabilitation center because he made me believe I was a drug addict with my spiritual not my spiritual beliefs, not just a drug addict, I was a drug dealer. Um, and people like holding on my every word of what I was going to say next and having relying on me how to live their life, which I don't want. I didn't want. And he brought all these things to my attention and made me like really scrutinize my spiritual belief and see all these things in the spiritual ideologies that I didn't want to see and how it was also in a way another religion and that I was indirectly a cult leader, which was like, what? This is so weird. Like I didn't sign up for any of this. This wasn't my intent when putting myself out there, but it tends to kind of just the more you share and the more the way your relationship with life, I guess, and certain things, and because you can see things and you're sensitive, you're different, that you immediately get put on this pedestal. And that's why I shared that story about what happened when I was in Madrid and how I burped after my conference and all that, just to kind of didn't want to be on this in have these people under a spell of me. I wanted them to see me as a human and I'm learning to, and I'm no different than you. Like I don't like when people give their power away. I guess I have a problem with that, whether it be to God or to another person or whatever. So the other thing about just that relationship with Diego was just how much he was really against um, religion and God, and particularly of the Bible, and just constantly pointing out the hypocrisies and wanting me to really see this. I remember it was very strong, like, even if you guys remember some of the texts that I would share from him all the time, it had this theme all the time, but then he laced it with his arrogance, and it's so funny talking about narcissism all the time, but he also was a narcissist, so, oh, weird. But I can see the parallels again of just going from one extreme to the other, and that's also the thing about I think God and the devil are just two sides to the same coin. Just like yin and yang, the symbol is not completely the white side is not completely white. There's a dark circle, and the dark side is not completely dark. There's a white circle. If I said that right, you know what I mean anyway. White side has a dark circle. Dark side has a white circle. There we go. And so meaning that like whenever we are playing favoritism with an ideology. So since I was so extremely spiritual for such a long time, I had to go the other direction of I guess Diego in the EOF days was more considered atheistic and I never identified with that, but I went down that route because I was just so let's say brainwashed by him at the time. Um and And I remember kinda just, still holding on to my spiritual beliefs, but just listening to the atheistic side kind of a thing. And remember also because that was the best way to bring his messages out there. Because he just also really wanted to use my platform and my followers as a way for him to get his information out there. But he wanted to be taken seriously, not within the spiritual community because they weren't serious, but within the academic industry. And the academic was all about atheism, which is how I ended up doing my documentary, and it had like that atheistic approach, which I couldn't allow that documentary to be made because that's not the story about Jessica that I want to tell, that I want to put out there. That's not me, and I can never promote these things as um, something that I would be okay with or be able to live with myself because I've got this like I don't know massive It's not like I definitely do not have a savior complex anymore. I'm aware I did that. I had that before, but I feel like I have this responsibility to myself to live as honestly as I can. Um, and like, I've lived my life publicly for all of you guys. It's how you've been watching my journey for over, 10 years, like, and quietly watching on the sidelines all these different directions and things I've gone and to realize and understand, and, the gifts in it, I guess. Just a second here. There's all these comments down all at once. Um We choose if the nightmare ever comes. Well, we're okay, got it. It's just there's so much to say about that. So that ties into also the self-fulfilling prophecy too. So religious people have been conditioned to have this um revelations and World War III and all these ways that they want us to think the apocalypse is the end of the world and fear, 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 dystopian future and so forth, which they want to have people manifest and create. They can't do it on their own. They need the people to partake in it. So, but this is the major choice that they're making us think we don't have a choice because we're a slave to prophecy. But we don't realize our part that we play in it by visualizing it and falling into their plan hook, line, and sinker, as opposed to stepping out and being like, hey, wait a second, I think I'm being had here. I remember this. Didn't this is a deja vu of a trap they did before? Like why we keep making the same mistake over and over again? uh Same different person but same shitty situation, right? Like how one abusive you use these as metaphors, like going from one abusive relationship to another, thinking they're free and it's going to be different, but it's the same thing again and again. That's a micro of a macro of what's going on in the world with the constant traps of one abusive relationship with the government and the WF after another. So that's another big reason I have the qualms with religious teachings, is just that pushing of that self-fulfilling prophecy for um, man's enslavement fully, which is not going to happen. But I want to still make people aware of these patterns of how we are participating in it and encouraging it to happen indirectly without even knowing it. Like just by trying to be a good person and follow all these COVID mandates, for example, you're indirectly partaking in a satanic ritual. 6 feet apart, wearing masks, eyes wide shut. Like these are, but we're doing it because we think we're being a good person and we're not harming anybody, right? So that's how they use good, love, and accepting and doing the right thing and savior as a trap for us, and we need to see that. Gnostics knew the truth. I haven't even got yet into the apocalypse of Adam. I have the text right here that I wanted to read some to you guys, but I keep getting lost in other things that you guys keep sparking here. Hi, we are on the same page. Love is only the acceptance of other self, but understanding is the self-realization. Well, I'm also saying be like skeptical of the kind of love we think we know and understand, because there's a lot of unhealthy love. And so with that, as a blanket statement of truth, as the end all be all, it's not that simple. However, we do also need to realize what we're doing to others, we're doing to ourself in this, and this comes from the Bible. There are some good things in the Bible. I won't say that it's all, like, I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And you guys know which lines, because I've said them before, particularly the ones about, child leading the way, one that has a heart of a child may enter the kingdom of God, and all this kind of stuff. And also the meek shall inherit the earth, meaning you can't be bought out and greedy and sell out humanity in order to inherit the earth. You have your morals, I guess, intact. I don't know. Integrity would be a better word, I think. Where was I going with this? I forgot. I will come back. Choices or juices? Well, I'm glad I make you laugh. Your cousin Lola is in Madrid, Spain. Yeah, but You know that story anyway that I've shared about burping in front of everybody at the end of my speech. The conference of 800 people. Yeah. Just in an attempt to be like, I'm human. Get me off this pedestal. So was up in there. Everything was for me. Yeah, so that's also really cool about you guys as soul family. You're watching my journey, for 10 years now, over 10 years, and yet your lives are paralleling and having similar experiences as mine and realizing the same things as me too. I just think that's amazing. Like we're all like, it's so clear that we're one and we're just having these slightly different parallel versions and experiences, to collect this understanding through these slightly different lenses and forms. I don't like the nihilist attitude. No, Diego was very much nihilistic. I didn't like that either. It was very upsetting. And I would always challenge that. I felt like that relationship was like I was in a courtroom setting, constantly defending humanity, where he was like, I'm blaming humanity for everything, and it's all humanity's fault. I'm like, no. It's these gods that are constantly, trying to, they're messing everything up purposely. They're destroying the environment purposely. They're harming everything purposely so that we can be blamed for it. So it's our fault because we had to go along with it because they have all the money and we just in power and we didn't have it. So we thought because we're not lucid living at the time. It's like the heart is 5,000 times more powerful than the brain. The heart is the brain. Well, okay. That's the other thing that I'm getting at though with playing favoritism, because we can favorite the right brain because it's more creative and fun and in touch with the inner child, and then the left brain's more logic and data and all that kind of stuff, and more the way the world is run through a left brain, and time is left brain very much as well, linearity as opposed to non-linearity. So we can choose one over the other, but then that makes us into a halfway, same as like choosing the brain over the heart, or the heart of the, like they're all part of us. Why would I choose one over the other and say one's the boss or more superior? They all need to work together, and they all have their part to play, and they're all team. And just I'm constantly trying to remind myself of that. Like, why would I choose my left hand over my right hand, or any hand? Like, I just watch myself with that. So they're all equally amazing. It's almost like I'm talking like they're my children or something, but this is where we're playing separatism and favoritism right there. We got to watch that. That's what they're trying to do with the war, is trying to make us choose sides, and rather than realizing, but they're both human, and they're both used to, casualties in this war that no one wants, that the agenda and the cabal want, and they're just constantly using us as this way. And we've got to be like, I refuse to play this game anymore. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. But anyway, I've talked for longer than I wanted to before going into I really wanted to read this text, so I'm going to try to do that now. So like I said, in the about section in this video, I shared, if you want to follow along with me, a link to gnosis.org, which I can't say for some reason right now, called, I like to laugh and make fun of myself. I refuse to take myself seriously, because that's just another way to just, I don't know, just makes sense to me. I guess it's healthy. I just don't want to be so strict on myself, because like that's how we are with our religious teachings or our expectations of ourselves. I want to be gentle with myself and treat myself as if I was, my own child as well. So I definitely wouldn't want to be like, talk to myself internally the way I would talk to any of my children if I ever had any. I don't need to have any to not have that realization. Michael Parker, you've been following me since the Camelot video. It's just wild. I still have to figure out how to download that video and put it on my channel. You know what? That's never been on my channel, that Project Camelot video. I always have to send the links to people, and they're constantly being like, since Project Camelot's original one was taken down, because all their videos were taken down because of some interview they did a while ago. Did I grow up in a cult? I think I did. Yeah, I think I did grow up in a cult. And then when we left, When my dad, started to have his experiences with the other beings in other realms, and particularly the angels who like went to church with him and were like, "Oh, what are you doing here? This is so boring. What are they doing? They're just telling you the same thing over and over. Is it helpful? What's it done for you? Why don't you just leave?" Um, it was pretty funny, but like I said, everyone who was our friends are no longer our friends anymore in the church, and the church never was like at an actual church building. It was at a high school. I remember it's always in the drama area of a high school. Yeah, and then after that, I started to research a bunch of different Christian religions, trying to find one that I'd fit in, and none of them felt right. So then I decided to explore other religions, and none of those felt right. And then I was like, oh, they're all saying the same thing. And then later on in life, I realized, okay, even if they're saying the same thing, they can be all right, but they can also be all wrong too, because again, those are decided choices for us, packages put together, not necessarily for our greater good, but to separate and trap us later on. Just like all injections, which is why I'm not for any of them, because they're all designed with ill intent. To every single one of them, even the very first one, even down to the polio, were all designed either to give you that which you were supposed to be getting protection from, because many got polio after taking it, and then also creating illnesses later on in life that are dormant, because in the 60s, there's no such thing as cancers and Alzheimer's and all this kind of stuff. It just suddenly exploded later on in life, like in like the 80s, 90s, 2000s. Where did that come from? So let's see. Okay. Alrighty then. So this Nag Hammadi Library, the Gnostic Society Library, The Fall of Adam and Eve. This is interesting because this is written by Adam talking to his son Seth about what really happened in the Garden of Eden, like his story, his perspective, as opposed to what we all know as. And this is banned from the Bible. And I find, okay, well, anything that they censor us, is immediately something there's obviously some truth there. That's why they don't want us to see it, right? So that's why I say it's all backwards and obvious. So like the more they censor, the more it makes obvious what it is that we need to pay attention to and what truth is. And why are you crying, Papichi? Why are you crying, Papichi? You look like a little Muppet. You want to say hi to everybody? Hi, everybody. Yes. I don't want a COVID test, but thank you anyway. Okay. You can stay up here. So, what's also interesting about this is he's talking to Seth, because Seth, Adam's son Seth, is considered the only one that is actually from him and Eve. That apparently, it also talks about this text. I'm not going to go into this just yet. What my intention was of doing this series of the backwards, we have it all backwards, and the backwards Bible, was to go through these texts and talk about them. But I'm taking forever to get there, so I'm sorry. These lives are longer than I always intend them only to be like an hour, and then I always go like over 2 hours for some reason, because I just go into a state of flow, I guess. I don't know, and I don't like time limits. But yeah. So anyway, Cain and Abel are apparently from the God in the Bible in Genesis that raped Eve. So they're not considered the from Adam and Eve. So anyway, I'm just going to kind of go into it because it's better for this text to show what I'm talking about rather than me try to put it together just yet. So the revelations that Adam taught his son Seth in the 700th year, saying, "Listen to my words, my son Seth. When God created me out of the earth along with your mother Eve, I went about with her in glory that she saw in the eternal realm from which we came. She taught me knowledge of the eternal God, and we resembled the great eternal angels. for we were higher than the God who created us, and the power with him, whom we did not know. So right here, they're saying that they were greater than the God that created them, which is exactly the opposite of what we're told in the Bible, that we come from God, we're lowly, we're God's creation, God can do with this what we like, basically. But this clearly shows that we were this divine spark that, well, I'm going to get into it. I'm going to jumping ahead, blah, blah, blah. Okay. God, the ruler of the realms and the powers, divided us in wrath. So God divided them? It was a ruler. God, the ruler of the realms and the powers, divided us in wrath. So Adam and Eve were one, like if you were here earlier and I was playing, jumping around trying to find the right scene I wanted to show you in the Pharmacratic Inquisition documentary, they were referring to them as hermaphrodites, which I don't believe there actually were physically hermaphrodites because they didn't have a physical form yet. I believe that's what the Khazarians want us to believe because they're very much their religion and their evil gods are all about hermaphrodites, being and raising, and all celebrities have to raise their kids as the opposite gender and all this kind of stuff. I think what they meant is just we were one. We were this beautiful, bright, beautiful spark of divine, and they basically this God, these rulers of the realm, just divided us in wrath, separated us, so we had to try to. That's why we're constantly trying to find our other half or find ourselves in each other. The great separation, if you will, which I wrote about in my poem Soul Archaeology. And then we became two beings. So then we were separated. And the glory in our hearts left us. So there was that sadness of being separated, not knowing anymore of our oneness. And the glory in our hearts left us, me and your mother Eve, along with the first knowledge that breathed in us. And glory fled from us and entered another great realm. Your mother Eve and I didn't come from this realm, but knowledge entered into the seed of great eternal beings. For this reason, I myself have called you by the name of that person who is the seed of the great generation. So this is getting at what I was referring to, that this Seth is actually from both Adam and Eve coming together and creating a form, creating Seth, creating life, merging that oneness in another form. So but the knowledge entered into the seed of great eternal beings. For this reason, I myself have called you by the name of that person who is the seed of the great generation. So by next incarnation, passing down this information and knowledge, or its predecessor. After those days of eternal knowledge of the God of truth withdrew from me and your mother, Eve. Then we learned about the intimate as we did about human beings. We recognized the God who created us. We were not strangers to his powers, and we served him in fear and slavery. After these events, our heart darkened, and I slept in my heart's darkened thought. So a lot of people also believe and worship what they do because of fear. There's a lot of cultures and tribes that had their own beliefs, their own ways of living, and they were told one day that what they're believing is evil and heathen and pagan and whatever, and that they are damned unless they embrace this belief and this faith. And this Christianity was mostly pushed on these people, and a lot of them were like, no, I'm going to stick to what I know and how I've been raised and what I believe. So they killed and tortured a lot of their their loved ones until they decided to turn and have a new belief. So a lot of people have this within them, within their belief, behind their belief of love, truth, and beauty, or whatever they want to think it is. Underneath that is fear and terror and the suffering of their ancestors who were forced to take on this belief because of all that fear and torture. And that again is another trap. If our belief comes, if the foundation and the roots are that, then that's not a healthy belief. That's not a healthy kind of a love. And that's something we have to look at and be honest with ourselves. And that's so interesting to me about like this story is it's so different than what we're told in the Bible that and it also reminds me of fairy tale stories too, like particularly Snow White, who was this like beautiful being, pure being, and then this evil queen ruler was like jealous of her. And they're going to get into how God was actually jealous of this light, this pure being that Adam and Eve were, and why they were captured and held to be slaves and less than, because we constantly hear that we were genetically altered several times by the Khazarians to be slaves. And so throughout history, we have this mentality, um, subconsciously, unconsciously, of being a slave. And all that happened, bad things that happened every time we tried to get free. And again, with the ringing cedars, Anastasia talks about this very interesting part where the priests were struggling with the slaves constantly escaping and never giving up trying to escape because they knew they were slaves. So this idea came that we have to make people realize, think that, but if we make them think that they're not slaves, what if we make them think we're free? And the way they did that was by giving them the concept of money. Okay, you don't have to build any more of these structures for royalty anymore. You don't have to be worried about being punished and all this kind of stuff if you don't build a structure or if you try to escape. But now you have this thing called currency. And now you are a slave without even knowing you are a slave. And the same package and same things, consequences are still there. They just don't know it. They just don't see it because they think we're free. Fear is the key. Fear stands for false evidence appearing real. That was another big thing about my UF days and what it actually stood for, which was the end of fear. And so yeah, I do feel that that is something we need to understand for sure. Um, just how much we are controlled by fear. Even things that we think is as love is actually fear. So looking underneath that. Okay, so Adam and Eve are awakened. And I saw 3 persons before me whose likeness I was unable to recognize. They were not from the power of the God who created us. They surpassed glory, saying to me, "Rise, Adam, from the sleep of death, and hear about the eternal being and the seed of that person, to whom life has come, who came from you and from Eve, your wife." Yes, this is about the material world and how we were created and trapped in the material world. So, when I heard these words from the great person standing before me, Eve and I sighed in our hearts. And the Lord, the God who created us, stood before us. He said, "Adam, why were you both sighing in your hearts? Don't you know that I am the God who created you? I breathed into you a spirit of life as a living soul." And darkness came over our eyes. Basically, God's like, "Well, you have to, why aren't you loving and worshiping and praising me?" He's trying to say, I created you. You should give me this credit, kind of a thing. But Adam's saying, "I remember who we really are before this, before you gave us this story and want us so badly to believe this. So we are your slaves. We're trapped in this jail. Somehow you trapped Tinkerbell, this light, this pure being, and I still remember who I am, and I remember being one, And there's this sort of a depression and sadness coming over them because it's constantly this brainwashing and conditioning of like, no, that's not the truth. I created you. I created you. No, no, no. I remember what that, like, it's almost like a gaslighting situation at this point where it's trying to make him think that he's crazy for his memories, that they're not real. You have to just, this is what's really real, and forget. The Council of Nicaea chose the text of the Bible to fulfill the purpose of the Roman Catholic Church. I also share a link in my about in this video as well about how the Caesars basically the Caesar Messiah is like the Roman conspiracy to that invented Jesus story. So that's also here if you want to look at later. I provided a little bit of homework for you guys as well. So let's see here. Then the God who created us created a son for himself and Eve, your mother. I knew a sweet desire for your mother, and the vigor of our eternal knowledge was destroyed in us, and weakness pursued us. The days of our life were few. I knew that I had come under the authority of death. So now also Adam and Eve, realizing that they were immortal and eternal beings, were now locked in this idea of death, that decaying and flesh and matter, basically, that they are trapped in this matrix where now they have to succumb to these rules. And every time they try to disobey them, there's punishment and consequences, which is, again, gaslighting and brainwash, and just what they're doing constantly with MK Ultra victims is basically what's being described here. And it's also talking about this sweet desire for mother, meaning knowing that he could make love to Eve, that but he also knew that when they talked about where does it say it here? The God who created us created a son for himself through Eve, meaning that they raped Eve and created the sons of Cain and Abel. So saying that, so there was, again, this is what they do in these cabal families as well. Like anyone can be raped, and there's nothing sacred about, like, they're just awful, basically, in the family. Mother, child, whatever. So now he's going, so now, my son Seth, I will reveal what those whom I saw revealed to me. After I went through the period of this generation and the year of the generations were over. So it's going now into Noah and the flood. And I'm wondering if I want to go into that this time, because I want to save things for next time as well. Which is also very interesting, different than what we thought, backwards again. But just, again, things to think about as far as what we know of Genesis versus what they're talking about here of Genesis. And tying that again to this just fairy tale stories of, like, using Snow White again as that example of her being this pure being, and then the ruling evil queen is jealous, because they're referring to also how this God that created matter and that trapped them in flesh was jealous of them and wanted to rule over them and convince them that it was the true God, through fear and wrath, basically. Which is the same thing, again, with the Snow White story. And so wanting to trap her by killing her, by giving her that poison apple, which was not necessarily an apple, was the Amamiti muscaria mushroom, because that's also, again, with the documentary, the Amamiti muscaria, the Pharmacratic Inquisition, that's how they talk about how the apple, which I cut off at that point, is where the apple is actually not an apple. It's a mushroom. And particularly that mushroom, the Amamiti muscaria, represents when people have it, they have near-death experiences. And so they're able to reveal the truth again. So it takes away that conditioning. And people who have near-death experiences, they're always so different. They have this love for quiet. My dog is scratching. Hey, what you doing? You're making like a thumper noise. Hey, it's my other one. That's Blossom. You can come up if you want. You want to come here? Want to come here? Come here. Come here, little fart. Here's Blossom. And Peach is like, me, you're picking up her, so I want to be picked up as well. So here they are. Okay, here we are. So, when people have a near-death experience, they're girls. I'm trying to talk and concentrate. How can I concentrate with all of this unconditional sweetness? So they're not afraid of death anymore. They've been to the other side. They've seen the other side. They're excited and motivated to. Oh, well, that's just showing my background. And showing people, basically explaining to them the truth of what happens on the other side and what happens when we pass away and stuff like that. And that is not at all what we're taught or what we think and so forth. So it creates this revealing and this awakening, and that kind of that's Just saying because I just got a message that I might have to cut this short because I have to help a dog give birth. Our friends have asked us to help their dog give birth, me and my mom. So I was just said, let us know when it's time and I'll head out. So it looks like it's very close now. It's happening, I think. Let's see. Anyway, let me go back to the comments here, and I think I will continue this for next time because this is excellent, Jessica, the mushrooms. Yeah, so you can watch the Pharmacratic Inquisition, and you can watch this documentary about how the Caesars created the story, the religious stories of Christ and so forth. It's very interesting. There's a lot of things to think about in there and dig into. Girls. There's just a lot of distractions happening right now. The truth is so overwhelming, I wouldn't recognize it. Well, I think that, again, it's like layers. It's not about it is overwhelming for a lot of people because it's a lot of change and responsibility and new ways of thinking, and new ways of living and being, and that's a lot of work for people because that also means they can't really relate to their tribe or their community anymore. And a lot of people have a lot of comfort and security in their fellowship at church and their family and their friends who all believe the same thing, right? So to question all of that is to step away from that security, and know that they're going to be kind of ostracized because now they're not fitting in anymore. And we've been conditioned so much to want to fit in. Thank you. These are my girls, Blossom and Peaches. And so it's not easy. It's not easy waking. Like I have nothing but empathy for people who are trying to. Hey, don't eat my cedar. So that's why I drop seeds wherever I can. I plant seeds. I look for cracks in people to share information where I can. I tend to just always speak to the part of a person that already knows this is what's true, and not because I find that's the most effective way, because everybody does really know deep down what's going on, whether they're ready to admit it or see it or not, whether their character is ready to admit it, see it or not. Even if they're an NPC player, even if they're a narcissist that's been planted in your life personally just to to disconnect you from your light or try to. So, like, they also are not, they're not just like doomed because they're an NPC player, like the movie Free Guy. The NPC player wakes up and becomes aware of the truth too. So it's very possible also for NPC players. It's probably a bit like more challenging for them. Um, but I mean, awakening in general is challenging because again, this is thousands of years of incarnations. This is all these lifetimes we've ever lived that prepare you for when you pull all those layers back, you will reveal, we reveal it collectively to ourselves. And we finally break free of those chains where we're not constantly enslaved once again, right? That's the ending of it. Um, it's why it's like the great revealing. That's why they say it like that. Trying to keep my cedar safe from my dogs. They're chewing on it. And you know, Tone Deaf, I know you like your motorcycles and adrenaline. And Caesars become the popes of Rome. All roads lead to Rome. Ah, yeah, that's right. That's where that saying comes from. Did you see that documentary? It's like I said, the links here in the about section of this video. Metamorphosis emblems show these shapeshifters. Near-death experience is a trip. Near-death NDEN, it's a trip. Well, it's a trip to seeing beyond the matrix to the other side, right? So I look at it like an NDE is like taking off the helmet, the VR helmet in the Matrix, and seeing people who you thought you lost in the game or the movie are there, right there in front of you, cheering you on, and even probably giving you codes and cheats to the game to basically building bridge to the other side. Everybody I know that's lost someone close to them, they have this, they're a bit more sensitive to truth and information, I feel like, because they have that bridge that's being built to them to connect with them and to realize the truth of, you know, outside the matrix. Excuse me? Why are you guys fighting? Why are you getting jealous right now? Beach. So yeah, let's see. I think next time what I will do is I'll try to make sure that my information hasn't been like altered because the cat stepped on something or my computers or whatever. So I didn't have everything open and ready like I wanted to go through. Let me see. There's anything else I want to share about the apocalypse of Adam? You're an empath and intuitive, and it's a rough ride. Again, because you're meant to take on other people's stuff as if it were your own, and you're doing that so you can transmute it for them, because they don't have the capacity yet to do that. It's a double-edged sword being an empath. Like I said, you get to feel other people's joy and pleasure as if it were your own. So, watching something that you enjoy, and if they enjoy it just as much, makes it even more enjoyable. But then also someone suffering is like your suffering, and then it's just compounded and just more intense. So being able to be objective about it simultaneously is a good tool to have, and looking at it like characters in a movie or a matrix or a hologram is a big tool to help understanding and feeling it in an objective way. That's the way you transmute it. Well, yeah, I'm glad to get you to think of it in that way, because I know a lot of empaths don't realize that. And I mean, being an empath, I don't, and just being able to connect with spirit in this way has kind of been able to put these things together for people and just, you know, share and get people to understand and realize like how to manage these tools that we're given, because we're dropped here on earth and we're not really given a manual or anything of what the heck's going on and what we're supposed to do. We're just expected to kind of figure it out and get it right in one shot. And again, impossible standards are constantly being set for us. and it's not fair, particularly when the game is rigged and the choices are pre-selected for us to fail. That's why all paths lead to Rome. Everything leads to that deception, rather than um, stepping away and seeing how it works and understanding the mechanics of it. Which I guess we can say is a good thing that came from that my end of fear days, because it was all about understanding your beliefs and ideology, understanding your fears and traps and patterns and how they work. Um, Only difference was I was able to do it and see it within myself and willing to go there, whereas ironically Diego wasn't, because he's still trapped in his stuff. Um, just want to see where else I had with Apocalypse of Adam's text there, because there's more. I know there's more, but where? Nakamari. If you guys find it, you can take a look too and tell me if you see it. Because they have it all. So let's see, just look a little bit more before I have to go and help this dog give birth. Thank you guys. Let's see here. Peter. The Apocalypse of Adam. Yeah, there's more. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at this more later and share with you guys. The Nagash are the 13 families of the true Illuminati that few have seen. Yes, by the way, I have had LSD slip to me. Oh, they can't see past there's this heart icon that's in the way, but enabled me to self-realize reality. And you know, a lot of people have realized through LSD and hallucinogenics and drugs and things like that. Even mushrooms had helped people awaken up to the truth. Shamans and their ayahuasca and peyote journeys and experiences have all helped people awaken and realize. That's why, like, Amamiti Muscaria helps you realize. But for a lot of people, unfortunately, they're not able to handle it, and they end up divorcing reality because of what they've experienced on the other side versus what they're experiencing here. Like, that other experiencing life outside the matrix and outside the hologram is like a heaven to them, and here it's like a hell, and you're so burdened and it just feels so hopeless and trapped that there's this psychological disconnection that happens where people then become lost to wanting to constantly feel that feeling they got from these hallucinogenics, and to live their life outside the matrix in a way that is disconnected and has no balance to this world that we're living in, because we are living in the matrix right now collectively, and so we do have to live in both worlds, if you will, while we're navigating ourselves out of this world. So, but for some people like you, they end up realizing from that experience, because I've never done LSD or anything like that, and I probably never will. It's just not anything I'm really interested in, and it's not something I need, I guess. And I already understand people's experiences, no matter how much the trip they had or what they've done. When they talk to me about what they've experienced, I just understand right away. So, but I know that a lot of people have found their understanding of what's really going on through those experiences, and they've been able to manage their mind and their life in the matrix, in balance, while using that and sharing that information to create tools, if you will, and building a bridge towards also helping others to realize as well. And it's neat too, because we have parallel journeys, right? We come to the same information, but in totally different ways. I don't want to hear you guys fighting, so I'm going to put you down because I don't know what's going on with you guys, but you're not. Oh, you're sweet. I keep getting distracted. Every time I'm on something I'm trying to say, then something comes up. Mushrooms definitely can. I actually was going to go mushroom foraging with my mom today, but it's going to be raining really heavily, so we didn't really want to be out in the way out in the bush in the heavy rain. It just would be difficult, particularly with the dogs and mom and everything like that. It'd be better to go on more of a sunny day. But it's just good to know of what mushrooms you can eat in the wild and what you can't, and how to know if it's poisonous or not. And also, the person that hosts this, they got inspired because of magic mushrooms and stuff like that, and then wanted to explore and understand about other mushrooms. But mushrooms are fascinating. I've always been fascinated by them. They're like alien, and they're like constantly changing, and science cannot keep up with all the different forms of mushrooms and how they're reinventing themselves, and just study them forever and just still be like, wow, be at all with them. Like, they can heal, but like, again, we have to be in balance and moderation. We have to still have a good understanding of ourselves. And because I talked about the religious teachings and the fear of hell, going to hell when you die, and that the many ghosts and spirits that are stuck here and are creating a lot of interference and stuff like that. So they're also, it's very easy for them to, well, in order for them to stay in the fourth dimension in the spirit realm, because they don't cross over, and because they're afraid to cross over because they think they're going to experience God's wrath, which is totally wrong and totally unhealthy and creates a whole bunch of problems in the fourth dimension. But they need to latch on to people, humans in the physical third dimension, in order to continue on and function. And our body is like a currency for spirit. Their spirit is obsessed with our having a body in a physical form and experiencing life through it. They feel like we take it for granted and we don't know what we're doing, and so like that's why we have so many let's say, not what's the word I'm looking for, attachments and cords from beings that don't have our best intention in mind. They tend to become more like a bit of a parasite, where they're kind of just draining our life force, or influencing our thoughts and decisions more so than ourselves. It's like an ideology that takes over your mind and thinks for you as well. So that's why when people also can do things like LSD, they can end up opening themselves to entities and people who have not crossed over, that are looking for someone who is, let's say, vulnerable and not aware of managing themselves. And so it complicates things. That's why this world is particularly complicated, and probably one of the last ones to be liberated. Why it's the last one to be liberated from all the other worlds that have been liberated from this Kasarian cabal beings that have gone to, let's say, several parallels and worlds and dimensions, and brought their parasitic ways with them to like compromise and tamper with things. I do think the spirits rule the earth plane. They don't rule it, but they've made it very complicated, because my first boyfriend was a Ghostbuster, and I learned a lot about ghosts that way, as well as just my own experiences with them and stuff like that. And I attribute them to, I'll use the word, I'll quote Diego, that they're very boring. So you'd always say things are boring, but ghosts are very boring. They're like, to me, teenagers or rebellious teenagers. They slam the doors, they turn the lights on and off, they throw stuff, they try to get a rise out of you, they try to scare you, and I just can't stand it. They're just really annoying. And then you can't really talk with them because they only have like a very short memory span. A lot of times they're not aware that they're dead, or they refuse to accept that they're dead. Um, I just burp, sorry. And yeah, and you can always kind of feel when they're near because the back of your hair will stand up. You'll just kind of feel this cold chill suddenly, particularly when you watch any shows like that. It's like an invitation to them. I mean, we just had Halloween, and again, I told you I've never celebrated any holiday in my life, not even my birthdays, because I was raised that way. But I personally cannot stand Halloween, and I feel like there's a lot of satanic, horrible rituals that happen at that time. I mean, I didn't even want to do a video at that time. I could have, but I chose not to. I chose to just be a hermit and kind of do whatever I could think of that was as least Halloween as possible, because I'm very anti holidays for the most part. But this particular one is my least favorite, just because of all the horrible things that happened during this time and all the constant force of seeing the macabre and creative ways to dismember and have people suffer and fear, and I just oof. And the veil is so thin with other realms, and it's very, very chaotic and intense for an empath like me. And I also don't have my animals out because a lot of animals are taken a few days before that holiday to be sacrificed as well. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons, but and then I've had some spirits come to me that are ready to cross over as well. So sometimes we get them drawn to us because we are supposed to help them cross over, and they're looking for someone who knows how to do that. But there are particular people here that have incarnated to work with that in particular. I have that. I can do it, but I don't like to unless I have to, basically. But there are some that are just complete, their forte is ghosts and spirits and working with them and, solving mysteries and stuff like that of cold cases and so forth. Um, and so it's just good for those people to kind of they focus on that. That's if you have questions in that, it's best to go to people like that. But for the most part, it's a lot of them are just all about kind of confusing you and deceiving you. And the thing is too, the problem is when I talked about self-fulfilling prophecies, a lot of the times when a spirit, um, maybe it was a pure spirit, but it was a spirit that appeared to someone who didn't know. Well, we're always afraid of what we don't know and we don't understand, right? So it appears to someone who doesn't know what it is, so it immediately freaks out and thinks it's got to be evil. So if you're raising a kid and if you tell the kid they're bad, that's the only idea they're ever going to have, and then they become it. And so it's the same with an entity or a spirit. If you tell them that and you think that they're evil or bad, then they become it. And so sometimes what I can do is I can pull all the layers away, and show them what they were before, all these labels and identities were put on it, that it doesn't have to play that role or be a slave to that, right? It can be lucid as well, and it can make choices. It doesn't have to take pre-selected choices made for them. It's the same it goes exactly in the spirit realm as it does here in waking life and the dream realm. Like they all parallel and correlate, and I want people to understand that and see that, particularly when everyone's going to start seeing more and more of the spirit realm, and we're being prepared for that constantly. That's what a lot of our entertainment and shows and news is all about, preparing us for. And I'm always meeting people like, oh, I just want to see the good stuff, the fairies and the angels. I don't want to see the dark. Well, I'm sorry, you're going to see everything. You can't cherry pick. You can't choose filter vision, because if you do that, then you're going to blindside yourself for everything else. Like you want to see a tidal wave that's coming to you. You don't want to not see that just because it's not pleasant, right? So we have to just know what we're looking at and know how to manage it and what to do with it. Like, because there's so many things happening all around us. Like I say, Earth is such a tricky, complicated mission for these souls that have come, that why we're here at this time, because there's this multi-dimensional aspect that's playing out. Like there's so many worlds existing simultaneously where we sit and stand right now, right in front of our face. But because we use such a small percentage of our eyes, we can't see it. So it's almost like there's these many different hologram virtual reality games existing simultaneously that we might be playing. We're not just playing one game, we might be playing several, and to have several different characters and several different rules and so forth. And those could be compromised as well too. It makes me think of this movie, or not a movie, it was a TV show I worked on long ago called, and I never even watched it, but I just remember when I worked on it. I remember just a few lines that really stuck out to me. Uh, This is how I think with my tongue out. I get that from my dad, by the way. I'm thinking deep, I stick my tongue out to the side. Caprica, I think it was called. And it was all about this virtual reality game that got compromised by beings who didn't have the best intention. And they also, I remember I had to participate in a ritual in that, where someone was being killed, and I was supposed to like be one of these girls in a bikini that's supposed to lick the blood off of when it splatters, which is disgusting. I don't think I did it, that I can remember. I'd have to watch and see if I did. But anyway, that was what they wanted to do in the movie. And the main characters were looking down and being like, "Oh my gosh, don't they realize what they're doing? Don't they understand what's happening?" And the other characters like, "Well, it's not their fault. They don't know what they're doing." And it just sounded like, that we hear in "Forgive them, for they do not know what they do." So we are, again, like the ones who are doing horrible things and participating in rituals don't, they know to agree, but they don't, because they were raised that way. They're raised in these families that constantly did horrible things to people, to the point that they don't know anything else. But there are even those that are waking up and are sick of it too, and are trying to take down the system from above. But I'm just saying that, like, they are also victims too. And so these entities, these ghosts, some of these demons are victims, not all of them. I'm not saying we should have sympathy and everything, and that there's a lot of ones that are just dark for the sake of being dark, and are just anti-life, and that's just how they are. And but we need to, again, understand how this works, because this is how we're indirectly feeding it and encouraging it and allowing it to become our self-fulfilling prophecy in our reality. So I like the quote, "How do you tell a dung beetle that honey is better than shit?" I've never heard that quote before. That's really good. Um, it does, yeah, because it's exactly what I'm saying, though. I see what you're getting at. It's just another way to put it. Because if they don't know anything else but dung, to the dung beetle, shit is better than honey. Because their mission is all about rolling poop. That's what they're here to do. That's and there's probably a divine aspect to that. Like if like someone wants to tap into something like a Dolores channel, I'm sure they're gonna say if some divine reason behind it, just like why moths are here doing what they're doing, and spiders and so forth. It's so fascinating. But I put a twist on what you were saying. I'm sorry. Um, yeah, just got bombarded with emails and such. So clear. Um, they are trying to slow stream you here with Jessica. Wait, what? You got bombarded with emails, or I got bombarded with emails? They're trying to slow stream me? Are you saying that there's a tampering with my video and my live stream? I don't know. But anyway, did I say everything I wanted to say? There's always things I want to say, and then I like forget to say it, and it comes later on. But I think I've hammered my point enough. I think you guys know what I'm getting at, and I will to be continued. And from the Nag Hammadi text, I do want to share about Noah, but I still want to see what else I can find on the Apocalypse of Adam. But I need to go through it a bit more. I can also take a look at my notes. It's a lot of notes, Jess. It's like a novel. It's almost like a script I did here. Whoa. A lot of pages. Yeah. So I shared here that humanity is suffering from a post-traumatic stress disorder, and this can definitely be carried from previous lives. The cellular memory follows bloodlines for up to 14 generations. I recommend the book on the Essenes by Stuart Wilson and Jonna Predis, especially book 3, the Magdalene version, the teachings of Mary Magdalene. There's also actually something I wanted to share too, probably save it for next time, of Eve's daughter. And she actually has a name, where in the Bible they don't even mention any of Eve's daughters, let alone a name of them. So I'm wondering if that has correlations towards what you're recommending here, Bill Holmes. Does it sound familiar to you? Because I read a lot about, and I've heard a lot about the Magdalene versions and teachings and so forth, and I know that it's repressed as well. Of course, they repress the feminine. And it's annoying that like now they're bringing back like more female characters and all of that in a way, though, in an imbalanced, unhealthy way. Like, yes, because a lot of people know that the females have been repressed. So now, like throughout history, but now we're bringing it out, but in a way that is still creating imbalance and separation and fighting amongst the sexes, where as opposed to more harmonious imbalance, if you will. Good. I'm glad that the quality is good. So this also goes for souls who volunteered to come to Earth. The walk-ins, as well as on contract, on an agreement, are also experiencing post-traumatic stress. The cause of training classes they take in the 4th and 5th dimension to prepare the 3rd dimension Earth zone. So they fail to actually capture the essence of how tough it is to be here. So I also wrote this down because I wanted people to understand that we have a big problem when I talk about Earth being a Harvard diversity university for creators in training. And what that means is, of course, you're not from Earth, you're studying, this is your final exam, if you will. But you've had to study and prepare a lot before even coming here on other places. And so there is another sort of holodeck matrix program that we give to souls before coming to Earth, that they have to kind of give them an idea of what they're in for, to prepare them, because otherwise, if they don't have that, then they come here and they get this immediate like PTSD, and because of the extreme difference of what it's like from where they are beforehand to being here. What it's like outside the matrix versus being here. It's very heavy, it's dense, it's dark, it's intense. It's just everything that is very traumatizing for a pure soul. Just a second, I'm gonna let the Peachy out. Oh, Peachy! Come on! Oh, my chair beat up. You can see it all scratched up. So we tried to create this sort of mock simulation, if you will. And see, It's not a weird thing because everybody nowadays who's trained to do particular things are trained in mock simulations. Pilots, they have to they train in a kind of mock simulation of what it's like and if what happens, what could go wrong and so forth. But it's never quite accurate. Like we know that it's not like there's a lot of things that they're limited in the mock simulation. Um, so it's not sufficient enough for when we come to earth, so it's still quite traumatic, and what we're working on the spirit level was trying to find the best way to prepare pure souls for, and we're all pure souls. I mean, we're all pure in general, but just when we come to earth, we immediately forget all that and disconnect from all that, and that's what's so traumatizing and challenging, and just how do we prepare them? How do we, help them remember and connect to that knowing and remembering the mock simulation and versus, what's actually happening here and stuff like that. So I believe that's what I was trying to explain here as I just write down in my stream of thoughts. Sometimes it's easier to keep track of things that I want to say. So we run our simulations, but it's nothing like actually being in, like it's like in being in jello, and actually trying to walk in it. And that's like what third density Earth is like right now. So you can try to run a simulation of what it's like to be in jello, but that's not the same as actually when you're here when you're experiencing it. Um, Very tough detail. I do not know if people are afraid to wake up or if it's just that this is all they know and they cannot imagine anything else through mind control, pharmaceuticals, and belief systems to make a move. And now this what I say that goes pertains to ghosts. Whether you believe in them or not, they do indeed exist, but most do not know what they are. So let's talk about what they are and how it happens exactly. You had an experience with them where they can be like children having a temper tantrum. So I said that from throwing stuff, slamming the door, flicking the lights, trying to scare you in the middle of the night, um, showing up without a head while you're half asleep and just trying to go to the washroom in the middle of the night. Yeah, I talked about most of this, I believe. There are people on the planet that are ghost whisperers. I talked about that. Okay, I'm gonna skip some of this because I've already went into this with you guys. I talked about purgatory. A lot of people stuck in purgatory beings because they're afraid to cross over, because they're afraid of going to hell. They have to feed off of us to continue to exist in that realm, which I've shared as well. When they attach to people, that's also what is known as some schizophrenic cases and spirit possessions, because there's no treatment and nothing has worked. And that also comes through traumatizing people through MK Ultra experiments. So, if you're weak-minded, then they could latch on. But I don't want to create any kind of fear through people or anything like that. I just want them to become stronger and more equipped to be able to understand these things. So denial does not change the fact that this, even if this sounds like a fantasy or a movie or whatever, it is what it is. So why do so many have fear of death? It's because of the, like, Catholicism, you're a sinner at birth, so if you make a mistake in life, I talked about this too. So there are people going through their entire life that are thinking if they make a mistake at any time, God is going to punish them. So the God that created the universe put you in a shithole down here, being controlled and manipulated by dark forces, and gives you one lifetime to get everything perfectly right, especially when you do not even know what the rules are. And the group that is telling you what the rules are a bunch of pedophiles. Come on, right? Like, so it's again just helping people understand the nature of the trap. All this information is coming out through, even though all the info about the structure that has been built to capture us as we get higher in frequency, those souls that have been trapped here, not demons, just humans who have not gone to the light, they are stuck. They will be looked after. So basically, I'm trying to say that we're getting, we have beings that have a particular mission on the spirit realm to look after these beings that are stuck here in the fourth dimension. In fact, the whole system is going over into to transcend and to graduate and shift. And I talked about reincarnation not being something that's an option anymore, but there are still so many who are afraid because of this loving God that is supposed to be all forgiving and won't forgive us. The true prime creator God did not make these rules. The false God, the God of the Matrix prison, did. All we can do is help each other. If if someone is interested in knowing what is going on and like open to the truth, then we can tell people this, right? And share this information, but only if they're ready to. So let me take a look at what some things you guys are sharing here. I'm missing the comments. The book of Chris Thomas. He studied the Akashics for 40 years, and is one after I come by Jessica here that gives good info. The first gods were female. I think they're both. I think they have essence of everything in it, and that's also where this hermaphrodite idea comes from. But it's just because, like, we have, again, yin and yang has both. You can't have one without the other. Together they create something, right? I'm female, but I have a lot of masculine tendencies. I'm very much a tomboy and all these things, but I'm aware of my divine masculine and I'm aware of my divine feminine. And I know that I need to balance those two in order to give birth to my inner child. And to give birth to my inner child is what heals and saves the world, because a child is what leads the way. Right? So I'm not playing favoritism between the feminine or the masculine. I like to give credit where credit is due, but we need both of them to create. So to me, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 3, because 1 + 1 will create another form, a life, even an idea, or a project, or music. They will never be the God of the world. Well, they'll never be the true God. They are the God of this world, yes. People don't live with facts, they live by ideas. Gang of Four. Hi, Jessica. Hello, Gang of Four. Look up the Tibetan doctrine of the hungry ghost, a person who passes away but does not want to pass on the fight to get the attention of the living and continues to relive their lives. Yeah, well, they have a short attention span. They have short-term memory. They can only remember certain things and they don't want to accept other things. It's like weaving a light suit, all about time spent in this place. There are 13 non-physical races. There are semi-physical, but at the moment, forget how many. But humanity is the only physical race. There's a lot of other physical races. There are 13 non-physical races. No, there's so many non-physical things existing simultaneously in front of us, around us, inside of us. Like, there's a lot of worlds within worlds within worlds. Less willing to, more inclined to be more selfish and strong-willed, and willed are more inclined to be more generous. Sure. But it's also just there's a quote I shared recently too. I guess I can share it here. Um, some people are mean and bitter because they had a rough childhood, and some people are kind and caring for the same reason. So basically, it's really how do we want to let these experiences define us? We don't have to be nurture versus nature, right? We can nurture ourselves and be our own um, guide role model to guide ourselves if there aren't any. Um, we can say whatever happens to us is not going to. I made a personal decision that whatever happens to me is not going to jade and make me bitter and cynical. Because as a kid, and I saw that constantly, I didn't like that. I didn't. I just never wanted to be like that. Same with the perfectionism. I saw how many people struggling to be like how much of a hell it was inside themselves to be a perfectionist and constantly trying to attain this idea of perfect, going over things over and over again. Now, this is a double-edged sword for me because I'm so not a perfectionist that there's things I constantly miss. But still, I just find that it's a lot of unnecessary stress to just be so hard on yourself about these expectations. And I like to be more gentle and know that gentleness is a true strength. Like water, gentle laps of water throughout time is what shapes stone. Um, and hardwood grows through time as well. There's a patience about nature as well. Just nature is constantly my teacher, and I learn so much from it. So I get frustrated when I hear people say, "Oh, that's evil," because that's not Jesus. It doesn't have the Jesus package, but just nature is just this simplicity, and it just there's no doctrine in it. There's no archetypes or stories or way to live. You just nature lives its way and does its thing quietly all around us. Silent examples of what we could do as well, waiting for us to listen and realize. But anyway, this video's gotten pretty long, and there's some more things I want to talk about, but I think I just will save it for next time. I got to prepare my notes a bit better because this is my first time I'm attempting to now bring notes in and not just go so spontaneously and off of memory. I'm glad that I hit a lot of my notes that I wanted to, but yeah. So this will be a to be continued video. There's a lot more I want to share and get into. We are all perfect, even in our imperfections, doing exactly what we are supposed to do. We do the best. We are the best actors ever. So we're constantly acting all the time. I mean, we're playing roles of what we think we should be, how to be an adult, how to how to do our job, how to be a parent. No one really knows. We're just acting. It makes me wonder about people who are professional actors. How do you have a relationship? How do you stop acting? How does your partner know if you're acting or not, right? I find like we have to be aware also of how characters can take over our mind and think for us, how Stanislavski method I've talked about before, actors who end up in mental institutions because they get lost to their character, and that character can take them to a dark place. But they got to remember who they were before they adopted this character and identified with this character. We're the best actors. We fool ourselves, but I think that as souls, we want to play as many different roles as possible. We want to understand what it means to be human and every possible experience we can conceive of in order to become responsible creators, to understand the ramifications of our decisions and so forth. And my dad always said that too. There's great perfection in our imperfections. And I think that's also why I'm not a perfectionist, because he would make furniture out of wood, and he would look for wood with he would never go for the perfect wood. He'd go for the wood with the knots and stuff like that. And old wood, and he could make, just beautiful creations out of it, and, he particularly loved the knots because they made these cool patterns, and it wasn't perfect, it wasn't like a straight piece of it was just it had these and that was perfection, like, there's great this is perfection is in nature, it seems like it's not, like because there's all these different patterns and things like that that don't correlate or make this particular pattern, but I think there's great perfection in our imperfection as well, and I constantly remind myself of that. Um, yeah. I know it's getting late, so I'm gonna let everybody go. We got stuff to do. I gotta help give help these dogs give birth now. And it's the mother is a Rottweiler and German Shepherd mix, and the father is a Great Pyrenees. So they're gonna be big dogs. So it's gonna be a big job. But yeah, everybody have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And till next time. Right. How do I stop this now? I don't know. Oh, there we go.